Myanmar civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi will remain in detention until a court hearing on Wednesday. That word coming from her lawyer. She's been jailed since the military coup 2 weeks ago. Right now, thousands of people are protesting against the coup and for Suu Kyi's release. Security forces, we know, have been deploying armoured vehicles in major cities, and they've been shutting down internet access. A monitoring group says service is just being restored now after an 8-hour near total internet blockout. And then just a short time ago, we learned this, that Myanmar's commander-in-chief of the armed forces signed several amendments to the country's penal code. It appears that change targets protesters, journalists and critics of the military coup. Well, joining me now on the phone, a journalist in Myanmar. For her safety, we can't give you her name or tell you her location. Thank you for joining us. I hope you can hear me. What's happening right now on the streets?
Thank you for having me. So right now on the streets, despite the fact that yesterday was a very frightening night, especially with tanks rolling in, seeing more soldiers in the street as opposed to simply police, people are back out there protesting. One large site of protest, at least in Yangon, is the central bank. Private banks have now are not functioning right now. Essentially, they've all shut down. And the government is trying to make sure, or the military is trying to make sure that banking, at least the central bank, remains operational. And so people are trying to prevent that from happening.
And what do you make of this, these new amendments to the country's penal code that seems to target protesters, journalists like you and critics of the coup? That's certainly another escalation.
Yes, it definitely is. The military is clearly trying to ensure that any level of dissent is criminalized and that they're able to arrest anyone for any reason. One of the amendments, one of the orders they've given out recently is for media to stop referring to them as either the regime or the junta. And we're not supposed to use the word coup either. And so there's not only sort of a general trend of intimidation, there's also essentially a war for the truth and the ability to describe what is happening accurately with correct language.
Absolutely, that is censorship in itself. What has then been the reaction by people on the streets to the news that Aung San Suu Kyi will be kept in detention, that she will remain in detention until this court hearing in the next few days? How much does her leadership, her inspiration, still garner support?
When you're out on the streets, especially in Yangon, especially in Burma-dominated regions, you see a lot of signs demanding her freedom. There's a lot of signs that say, free our mother, save our mother. A lot of people here, see her very much as a parental figure who's guided and protected them for years. But, if you look in other regions, she's either less popular or her freedom is not seen as much of a priority, or at least her freedom specifically. And the signs and slogans are more about freeing all political prisoners. Right now, you're not seeing as much leadership from the NLD. I mean, obviously she's in detention and not able to communicate, but the party itself, the party that won the election, is not necessarily leading the civil disobedience movement, and it's very much a very diffuse, largely leaderless, or at least the leadership is very, very diffuse in terms of who's organizing what and the direction in which the protests are going.
Thank you very much for joining us. Stay safe. I know that the nights are particularly scary. That was a journalist in Myanmar. We couldn't identify her or her location for her safety. We'll continue to monitor events on the ground.
The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar is promising that the military will be held accountable. He says the arrests and internet shutdowns are a, quote, sign of desperation. Paul Hancock's following the protest for us from Seoul. What are we to make of these military movements, the internet shutdown? Does it seem like a crackdown could be imminent?
Well, Michael, that's definitely the concern. And what we're seeing is more videos that are being filmed, in many cases by protesters themselves, then uploaded of that crackdown by the military. There's one in particular that we have received where this was in Kachin State on Sunday night. A number of protesters out on the streets when it was dark, and it then appears that the security forces fire a number of rounds to try and disperse the protesters. Now, in this video, you can see the protesters panicking and running away from the sound, and you can hear the several rounds of fire in the background. Now, it's not clear, and it's very difficult for us to ascertain whether or not they were rubber bullets that were being used or whether that was live fire. Now, we also saw water cannons being used at this particular demonstration, but it's still not stopping many people coming out onto the streets, thousands in different cities across the country, insisting that they will continue to come out onto the streets to protest against the coup. Michael?
Yeah, and meanwhile, Aung San Suu Kyi, tell us more about the plans for her and, just how she is regarded among the people. I mean, she had some trouble with the international community over the Rohingya, but on the street, she is still revered, right?
Absolutely. Inside Myanmar, she is just as popular as she has ever been. Now, certainly her reputation is tarnished internationally, but that has not affected her reputation internally, certainly in some of the big cities. Now, what we are hearing from her lawyer is that she will be remanded in custody until Wednesday. There should be a court appearance on Wednesday, but that will be via video conference as opposed to in person. But what we're hearing as well from her lawyer is that he hasn't been able to go and see her yet, and he is applying to the judge to be able to defend her. So it's unclear whether we will even see any of that court case. It's quite frankly unlikely, given the military at this point is even trying to shut down the internet, and has done for 8 hours overnight, Sunday into Monday, to try and stop information from getting out of the country into the world. So we will just have to see what comes on Wednesday, but clearly there are many that are concerned that Aung San Suu Kyi could be spending some time in detention.
Yeah. Good to have you there, Paula. Thanks, Paula Hancock's.